Let's take a look at the USA.sql file. What we're going to do is we're going to move that over to the server. So once it's up on the server in our home directory, we can then connect through PuTTY. And what we want to do, first of all, I did a list files to make sure the USA.sql is there. I did that by doing ls space -l. And I can see the USA.sql is right there. So I ran a command called mysql -h localhost -u, and then my username happens to be testg, -p, which just means include the password, although I'm not showing it here, and then testg again is the database name. But after that I have a less than symbol. That's the redirector from, and what it means is you're going to redirect, you're going to take USA.sql, open it up, and import all the commands from there. We haven't looked at what's in there. We just are trusting that it's going to be good. So when we do that, because we have the -p, we have to enter our password. We get that all done, and it comes back silently, returns me to the $ prompt, and I know that means it must have worked because I didn't get any error messages. Now if I do that same thing without the less than USA.sql, I'm going to go into MySQL. I'll be opening the application. Okay, this means I'm connecting to the local host with that username. I'll need to supply a password, and I'm using that database. Now when I show tables, you'll see I've got, in this case, 3 tables: FM Towns, Students, USA. I just loaded that USA one. So when I type describe USA, I can see all the things that I have on there, all the fields. Some are integer, some are character. It looks like they're all character, they're not variable character, but that's okay. A couple things I want to point out. State code is character 2, so that's things like NY for New York. State name is character 15, so that's going to be New York and not NY. I also want to point out that you have to pay attention to what these things are. High point is character. High elevation is integer. So that tells me that, for instance, high point would probably be something like Mount Marcy, might be one of the entries for New York, and high elevation might be 5,344 feet or some other number. Actually, it would just be an integer, so it wouldn't have the word feet. It would just be 5344, more than likely. Now I've got a list of questions that I want to look at, and every question requires a little bit of thought. So which states are in New England? Well, let's go back to that. Which states means I don't want state code, I want state name. But I want New England states. That means looking at my data here, I probably want to know which ones have a region equal to New England. So I have a select state name rather than state code from USA, that's the data table, where region equals New England. And I see all the state names of those 6 New England states. Now, which states have a population greater than 1 million? Okay. In that case, I've got a POP 2010 as a field name. That's probably where I'm going to find population. You'll notice it's an integer. And I need to know which state, so I'm back to state name there. Now, the first time I wrote, I put where population greater than 1 million with commas in there, and you see that I get a whole big error message. Now I rewrote it correctly without commas for the word million, or the number million, and no problem, it gives me that listing. Select state name from USA where population 2010, or POP 2010, greater than 1 million. End it with a semicolon, of course. Now my next question asks which ones are going to be equal to 1 million. That would be exactly equal to 1 million. Chances are empty set. Now, I just wanted to do that to point out that an empty set is not an error. It just means nothing matched. Now here, which states have the magnolia as the state flower? Well, what's the field for state flower? Magnolia is the data. And what's the field for states? So we have to go back and look at it. We probably want state name, and it looks like flower is what we want to consider there. So select state name from USA where flower equal magnolia, and apparently Mississippi and Louisiana both have magnolia. Which ones have stinkweed? More than likely none. I wrote stinkweed two different ways, and yeah, they're both empty. This doesn't. Nobody has that as one. Now, which states are in the Midwest? Again, I have to figure out the field for states and the field that would use Midwest as the data, and that's where state name and region are going to come in. And of course, region equals Midwest. It turns out it's an empty set. So here's what I did. I wrote select distinct region from USA. Now, if you know there are 50 states in the United States, then there's going to be somewhere less than 50 regions. We don't know how many and what they're called until we do this, select distinct region. That gives me them all in the order. I believe Alabama is the first state, and that's why South Central's there, and Alaska is the second one, which is why Pacific is there, and I think maybe Arizona might be the third, which is why Mountain is there, and so on. Now, just want to point out, when it says how many, that's a key. I'm looking for a count. And when it says states, it's really saying how many records are in New England. That's really what it's asking. So let's take a look at that. Select count as num. Now that's count parentheses, star parentheses, or asterisk, as num from USA, where region equals New England. The num is 6. All right. You notice if I put New England in all lowercase, I still get 6. If I put New England capitalized as I had it, but without that space, I get a num of 0. See, it's not an empty set. It's giving me a count. The count happens to be 0. So how many states have a population greater than 1 million? Well, Pop 2010, that's what we're looking at. That's the field, so we need to know that. And we select count as num from USA, where Pop 2010 greater than 1 million. Apparently 41 of them have that. And there you go.